March 28, 1945. American forces are pushing through the German village of Neustadt. They round a corner, and there it is. A monster. 75 tons of steel and hate, sitting in the middle of the road like a cathedral made of armor. The Jagdtiger, the heaviest armored fighting vehicle ever used in combat. Its gun, capable of punching through any Allied tank at 2 miles. But here's the thing. It's not moving. The crew, they're not inside anymore. They abandoned it. Not because they ran out of ammunition, not because they were surrounded. They abandoned it because it broke down. Again. This is the story of Germany's most powerful weapon that became its greatest liability. A tank destroyer so massive, so over-engineered, so obsessed with raw killing power that it couldn't even reach the battlefield half the time. This is about the Jagdtiger and how Nazi Germany's addiction to building superweapons cost them everything. See, we talk about German engineering like it's this perfect thing, right? Precision, excellence, superiority. But the Jagdtiger tells a different story. It tells the story of a military that forgot the most basic rule of warfare. You can have the best gun in the world, but if you can't get it to the fight, it's just a very expensive paperweight. Let me take you back. It's 1943. Germany is losing. The Eastern Front is collapsing. Stalingrad is gone. Kursk, a disaster. The Allies have landed in Italy. The writing is on the wall. But Hitler doesn't see defeat coming. He sees a problem that needs a bigger solution. Soviet heavy tanks. The IS-2, the KV-1. American Shermans pouring off boats by the thousands. His generals are screaming for more tanks, more production, more everything. And Hitler's response? Build something so powerful that nothing can stand against it. Enter Ferdinand Porsche. Yes, that Porsche. The man who already gave Germany the, let's call it, problematic Porsche Tiger. Now he's got another idea. Take the King Tiger chassis, already the heaviest tank in production, and put an even bigger gun on it. Not just any gun. The 12.8-centimeter PaK-44. A gun so large, it was originally designed to shoot down bombers. We're talking about a shell that weighs 62 pounds. 62 pounds. One round. The muzzle velocity? Over 3,000 feet per second. This thing could penetrate 9 inches of armor at over 2 miles away. Not one Allied tank could survive a hit from this weapon. Not one. On paper, it's terrifying. The ultimate tank destroyer. Impenetrable armor on the front, a gun that could kill anything with wheels or tracks. The Jagdtiger was supposed to be the answer to Germany's tank problem. But here's what they didn't account for. Physics. Basic, unforgiving physics. 75 tons. Let that sink in for a moment. 75 tons of metal trying to move on a chassis designed for 54 tons. The King Tiger was already pushing the limits of German engineering. It was already too heavy for most bridges, already broke down constantly, already drank fuel like an alcoholic at an open bar. Now they're adding another 20 tons on top, 20 tons of gun, armor, and ammunition. The engine? The same Maybach HL230 that powered the King Tiger, 690 horsepower. Now that sounds like a lot, until you do the math. That's about 9 horsepower per ton. For comparison, a Sherman tank had over 15 horsepower per ton. The Jagdtiger's top speed on a perfect road, flat, no obstacles, was 21 miles per hour. In reality, 10 miles per hour. Maybe. If you were lucky. If nothing broke. And something always broke. Production started in early 1944. The plan? Ambitious as always. Hitler wanted 150 of these monsters, 150 mobile fortresses that would stop the Allied advance cold. By the end of the war, they built 79. 79 Jagdtigers rolled out of the factory, and here's the kicker. Fewer than half ever saw combat. Not because they were destroyed, not because they ran out of ammunition, not because they were surrounded. They abandoned it because it broke down. Let me paint you a picture. It's February 1945. Schwere Panzerjägerabteilung 512, Heavy Tank Destroyer Battalion 512, receives their Jagdtigers, The crews, they're excited at first. They've heard the rumors, the massive gun, the thick armor. They think they're getting a war winner. Then they try to move them. First problem, bridges. Germany's infrastructure is already crumbling from Allied bombing. The bridges that are still standing, most of them are rated for 30 tons, maybe 40. The Jagdtiger weighs 75. So every time they need to cross a river, they have to find a ford, a shallow crossing, or build a temporary bridge, or just, go around, miles and miles out of the way. And this is assuming the Jagdtiger can even make the journey. Second problem, the transmission. Oh, the transmission. German tanks had a reputation for transmission failures. The Jagdtiger took it to a whole new level. The Maybach Olvar B40 1216B transmission was already struggling in the King Tiger. Now it's trying to shift gears with an extra 20 tons hanging off the front. Crews reported transmission failures within the first 50 miles. 50 miles. Some broke down within 10. 10 miles from the factory, and they're dead in the water. Third problem, fuel. The Jagdtiger had a fuel capacity of about 860 liters. At maximum efficiency, which never happened, that gave it a range of 90 miles on roads. 90 miles. Off-road, cut that in half. Maybe less. And this is 1945. Germany doesn't have fuel. The Romanian oil fields are gone. The synthetic fuel plants are being bombed around the clock. There were documented cases, of Jagdtigers being abandoned on the side of the road because they simply ran out of gas. Not destroyed, not damaged, just empty. But let's say you overcome all of that. Let's say you somehow get your Jagdtiger to the front line. Fuel tank full, transmission holding together through sheer force of will, no rivers to cross. Now you have to fight with it. The gun, that beautiful, terrifying 12.8 centimeter gun, takes about 2 minutes to reload. 2 minutes. In tank combat, 2 minutes is an eternity. A Sherman crew could fire 5 rounds in that time. And yes, those Sherman rounds might bounce off the Jagdtiger's armor, but the 5th one? Maybe that one finds a weak spot. Maybe it tracks you. And once you're tracked, once you can't move, you're done. The armor. Yes, it's thick. 10 inches on the front, but only 3 inches on the sides. 3 inches. A Sherman 76mm gun could penetrate that. A bazooka could penetrate that. So the Jagdtiger has to face the enemy directly at all times. No flanking, no maneuvering. Just sit there and hope nothing gets around you. And here's the thing they didn't think about. The battlefield isn't a shooting range. It's not flat. It's not open. There are buildings, trees, rubble, craters. The Jagdtiger is 33 feet long. 33 feet. It can't turn in a narrow street. It can barely squeeze between buildings. If it gets stuck, and it got stuck constantly, it becomes a stationary pillbox. And stationary pillboxes don't last long when the enemy can call in artillery. Let me tell you about Schwer Panzerjäger Abteilung 653, another Jagdtiger unit, March 1945. They're sent to defend the Ruhr pocket. 11 Jagdtigers, 11 of these super weapons. Within 2 weeks, 9 are gone. Not from enemy fire, from mechanical breakdowns. Transmissions, engines, suspension. One threw a track and they couldn't repair it because the replacement track weighed so much they needed a crane to install it. A crane! In the middle of a battlefield! The 2 that were still operational? They retreated. Slowly. Very slowly. 10 miles per hour through bombed-out German towns, trying to find fuel, trying to stay ahead of the American advance. One made it 20 miles before the engine seized. The crew set charges and blew it up themselves. The other got stuck trying to cross a bomb crater. Just wedged itself in there. 75 tons of metal sitting in a hole like a beached whale. The crew abandoned it. American engineers found it 3 days later. They spent a week trying to figure out how to move it. Eventually, they just pushed it off to the side of the road and left it there. There's this moment, this perfect moment that captures the entire Jagdtiger story. April 1945, a single Jagdtiger is guarding a crossroads near Iserlohn. American forces spot it. They call in air support, P-47 Thunderbolts. The Jagdtiger crew, they can't run. The thing barely moves. So they sit there and they watch the planes come in. The 12.8 centimeter gun, useless against aircraft, they try to shoot anyway. Miss, obviously. The Thunderbolts make their pass, rockets, bombs. The Jagdtiger survives. The armor does its job. But here's what gets me. The crew abandons it anyway. Not because it's damaged, because they know they can't move it. They can't get it to safety, so they just leave. 75 tons of Nazi Germany's finest superweapon engineering sitting in the middle of a crossroads. Empty. The Americans rolled up with a Sherman, one Sherman. They looked at the Jagdtiger, looked at each other, and someone said, well, we're not towing that. So they stripped it for intelligence, took photographs, documented everything, and moved on. The Jagdtiger sat there for months, eventually got scrapped for parts. This happened over and over. Jagdtigers abandoned because they broke down, abandoned because they ran out of fuel, abandoned because they were too slow to retreat. There's records of German recovery teams finding intact Jagdtigers with full ammunition loads, perfectly functional guns, just sitting there, empty, because the crew knew it was hopeless. Here's the cost breakdown, by the way. One Jagdtiger in 1945 cost approximately 300,000 Reichsmarks to produce. For that same price, Germany could have built 6 Panzer IVs, 6, or 12 Stug 3s, 12 reliable, mobile, proven tank destroyers. Instead, they built 79 Jagdtigers, and maybe 30 saw actual combat. Of those 30, maybe 10 actually killed anything. 10! The rest just broke down and got abandoned. But the story gets worse, because it's not just about the Jagdtigers themselves. It's about everything else they consumed. The factory space, the raw materials, the skilled workers, the transport infrastructure. Every hour spent building a Jagdtiger was an hour not spent building something Germany desperately needed. Like trucks. Germany was critically short on trucks. They needed tens of thousands more. But those factories? Making super weapons instead. The resources that went into one Jagdtiger could have produced 30 trucks. 30! Think about that. 30 trucks carrying ammunition, fuel, food, replacement parts, keeping the German army mobile and supplied. Or one 75-ton monster that breaks down every 50 miles. And the crews. Oh man, the crews. These weren't inexperienced conscripts. You don't hand a Jagdtiger to a rookie. These were veteran tankers, men who'd survived years on the Eastern Front. Men who knew how to fight, how to lead, how to keep their soldiers alive. And Germany took these veterans and locked them inside machines that barely worked, machines that couldn't retreat fast enough when things went wrong, machines that made them targets. There's a report from a Jagdtiger commander, written in March 1945. He's pleading with his superiors, begging them to reassign his crews to Panzer IVs or Panthers. He says, and this is a direct quote from the translated report, "I would rather have 5 working tanks than 1 immobile fortress." His request was denied. Waste of resources, they said. The Jagdtiger was superior, they said. He lost 8 crews in 2 weeks, not because they were outfought, because their vehicles couldn't move. Let's talk about the Battle of Remagen. March 1945. The Americans captured the Ludendorff Bridge, the last intact bridge across the Rhine. Hitler's furious. He orders everything thrown at that bridge. Everything. Several Jagdtigers from various units were ordered to the area. You know how many made it? 1. One Jagdtiger actually reached the operational zone around Remagen. The others broke down in transit. One caught fire, spontaneously, just from the strain of moving. The engine literally cooked itself. The one that made it? It took up a position overlooking the bridge. Perfect spot, perfect angle. The gun could absolutely reach the American positions. The commander ranged his shots, and nothing. They couldn't get the gun to depress far enough to hit the bridge from that angle. The Jagdtiger's gun, mounted in a fixed casement, had limited traverse, limited elevation. They were on a hill, which should have been perfect, but the gun couldn't angle down enough. So they tried to reposition. The Jagdtiger backed up and slid. The ground was soft from spring rain. 75 tons just slid sideways into a ditch. Not even enemy action. Physics. The crew spent 6 hours trying to get it unstuck. Eventually, they gave up, called for a recovery vehicle. You know what recovery vehicle can move 75 tons? None. None that Germany had. So they abandoned it, set charges, blew the ammunition, walked away. There's this pattern you see in the late war German military. This desperate belief that technology would save them, that one more superweapon would turn the tide. The Jagdtiger, the Moss, the E-100, jets, rockets, all these wonder weapons. And every single one took resources away from what they actually needed. More infantry, more fuel, more trucks, more basic, reliable equipment. The Soviets figured this out early. The T-34 wasn't the best tank in the world. It was crude, uncomfortable. The optics were mediocre, but it worked. It was reliable. It was easy to maintain. And they built tens of thousands of them because they understood quantity has a quality all its own. 5 T-34s will beat one Tiger. 10 T-34s will overwhelm a Jagdtiger. Not because they're better, because there are more of them. The Americans, same thing. The Sherman was outgunned by basically everything Germany had, but they built 50,000 of them. 50,000. And they were simple enough that a crew could fix most problems in the field. Simple enough that they didn't break down every 50 miles. Simple enough that they actually made it to the battlefield. Germany built 79 Jagdtigers, 79 monuments to over-engineering, to the belief that bigger is always better, that more armor and a bigger gun solves everything. And they were wrong. I want you to imagine being a German soldier in early 1945. You're defending some nameless town. You're exhausted. You're hungry. You haven't seen a supply truck in 3 days. And then you hear it. A Jagdtiger is coming. Reinforcements. This massive machine rumbling up the road. Your spirits lift. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is what we need. And then it breaks down. Right there. 200 meters from your position, just stops. Smoke pouring from the engine. The crew bails out. They're screaming for tools, for parts, for a recovery vehicle that's never coming. And you realize that 75 tons of steel isn't going to save you. It's going to sit there and draw artillery fire. Because that's what happened. The Jagdtiger became a target magnet. Allied spotters loved them. Big German tank, not moving, grid coordinates. And then the artillery would come. The Jagdtiger's armor could handle a lot, but not a direct hit from a 155mm howitzer, not repeated hits. And it definitely couldn't handle the psychological effect on the German troops who watched their supposed superweapon get pounded into scrap metal. There's this interview from a German infantry officer recorded by American intelligence after the war. He talks about the Jagdtiger, and he's bitter, really bitter. He says they were told these machines would stop the Allied advance, that one Jagdtiger was worth 10 Shermans. And technically that might have been true. If it worked. If it had fuel. If it could move. He lost 32 men trying to defend a Jagdtiger that couldn't even fire its gun because the recoil system had failed. 32 men dead, protecting a paperweight. Let me tell you about the fuel situation, specifically, because this is where the Jagdtiger's problems become almost comical. Tragic but comical. The Maybach HL-230 engine, under ideal conditions, consumed about 800 liters per 100 kilometers on roads. That's about 3 miles per gallon. 3! Off-road, double that consumption. The Jagdtiger burned through fuel like it was water. Now, Germany in 1945 is producing maybe 10,000 tons of synthetic fuel per month? Maybe. The Luftwaffe is screaming for aviation fuel. The Wehrmacht needs diesel for trucks. The Kriegsmarine needs fuel oil for the few ships still operational. And somewhere in that desperate scramble for petroleum, someone has to find fuel for a 75-ton tank destroyer that drinks 800 liters just to move 100 kilometers. There are reports, multiple reports, of Jagdtiger units receiving their fuel allocation in buckets. Buckets! Hand-carried from supply depots because there weren't enough fuel trucks. Crews filling their Jagdtigers 1 bucket at a time. 860 liters, that's about 227 gallons. Imagine filling your car's gas tank with a bucket. Now imagine doing it 227 times. That's what these crews were dealing with. And even when they had fuel, even when everything was working, The Jagdtiger had another problem: tactics. See, tank destroyers are supposed to be ambush weapons. You hide them. You wait for the enemy to come into range. You fire. You relocate. Basic tank destroyer doctrine. The Jagdtiger couldn't relocate. It was too slow, too loud, too massive. Once it fired, everyone knew where it was, and it couldn't move fast enough to change positions before return fire arrived. There's this engagement near Ostrode, April 1945. A Jagdtiger takes up position in a tree line. Good spot, overlooks a road. American armor is expected. The crew waits. Hours. Finally, a column appears. 3 Shermans. The Jagdtiger fires, hits the lead Sherman, obliterates it. 1 shot, 1 kill. The gun does what it's designed to do. The other Shermans scatter. They're looking for the source of fire. The Jagdtiger crew reloads. 2 minutes. Remember, 2 minutes. In that time, the Shermans have flanked. They're moving through the trees, fast. The Jagdtiger can't turn fast enough, can't traverse the gun fast enough. The Shermans get behind it. 3 inches of side armor, 4 shots. The Jagdtiger brews up. 1 kill, for the loss of a 300,000 Reichsmark superweapon and 6 trained crew members. That's the mathematics of the Jagdtiger. That's the reality. But here's what really gets me. The German High Command knew. They knew the Jagdtiger was a disaster. There are meeting minutes from late 1944 where officers are recommending cancellation of the program. They're showing Hitler the numbers, the breakdown rates, the fuel consumption, the cost. And Hitler doesn't care. He wants it bigger. He wants more armor, a bigger gun. He's talking about mounting a 15-centimeter gun. 15 centimeters on an already overloaded chassis? The engineers are literally pleading with him. It can't be done. The chassis can't handle it. He doesn't listen. There's this beautiful irony. The Jagdtiger was designed to stop the Soviet heavy tanks, the IS-2 specifically. But you know what actually stopped IS-2s? PaK-40 anti-tank guns. Simple, towed, cheap, effective. Germany had thousands of them. A PaK-40 could penetrate an IS-2's armor at reasonable range. It cost a fraction of what a Jagdtiger cost. It didn't need fuel, didn't break down, could be moved by a truck or even a horse cart. But that wasn't sexy. That wasn't a superweapon. So they kept building Jagdtigers. The maintenance situation. Let me talk about maintenance. A Jagdtiger required specialized tools, specialized parts, specialized training. The road wheels alone, each one weighed over 200 pounds. Changing a damaged road wheel in the field, assuming you even had a replacement, took hours, with a crane, in ideal conditions. Now imagine doing that under fire, or in winter, or both. The final drive units, constantly failing. The Jagdtigers' weight put enormous stress on these components. They were supposed to last about 1,000 kilometers. In reality, maybe 300, maybe. And each final drive unit weighed, I want you to understand this, over 2,000 pounds. 2,000 pounds per unit. 2 of them. Replacing them required basically disassembling the entire rear of the vehicle. German tank recovery doctrine said you should repair vehicles in the field whenever possible. But the Jagdtiger defied field repairs. The components were too heavy, too complex, so they had to be towed back to rear area workshops. Towed! By what? The Bergepanther recovery vehicle could theoretically tow a Jagdtiger. Theoretically. In practice, the Bergepanther's winch wasn't rated for 75 tons. Crews tried anyway. Several Bergepanthers broke their winches or burned out their transmissions trying to move disabled Jagdtigers. So then you had 2 broken vehicles instead of 1. There's this perfect example from February 1945, Schwere Panzerjäger Abteilung 512 again. One of their Jagdtigers throws a track. Just comes off the drive sprocket. This happens. It's fixable. But the track each link weighs about 50 pounds. There are 96 links. That's 4,800 pounds of track, laying on the ground, that needs to be lifted, aligned, and reinstalled by hand in freezing weather. The crew tries. They work for 9 hours. 9 hours. They can't do it. They need a crane vehicle. The crane vehicle is 40 kilometers away. Can't spare the fuel to send it. So, they blow the Jagdtiger in place. Perfectly good vehicle, just needed the track put back on. destroyed because the logistics couldn't support it. This happened constantly. Jagdtigers abandoned for minor mechanical issues that couldn't be fixed in the field. Issues that would have been routine repairs on a smaller vehicle became death sentences for the Jagdtiger. A broken fuel pump? Abandon it. A cracked road wheel? Abandon it. Engine overheating? Abandon it. The German military was literally throwing away functional weapons because they were too difficult to maintain. And the crews knew it. The crews hated these machines. There's diary entries, letters home, post-war interviews, all saying the same thing. The Jagdtiger was a death trap, not because of enemy fire, because it couldn't run away. Tankers, good tankers, know when to fight and when to withdraw. The Jagdtiger took away that choice. Once you committed to a position, you were there until you won or died. Because retreating in a Jagdtiger at 10 miles per hour through bombed-out roads with Allied fighter bombers overhead, that's not retreating. That's just dying slowly. There's this haunting account from a Jagdtiger driver. April 1945, his unit is retreating from the Ruhr. 5 Jagdtigers. They're trying to reach the Elbe River, trying to avoid encirclement. He describes the journey. Constant breakdowns, running out of fuel, having to siphon fuel from 1 Jagdtiger to keep the others moving, then siphoning from 2 to keep 3 moving, then 3 to keep 1 moving. They started with 5. They ended with none. All 5 abandoned on the roadside. 1 broke down permanently. 2 ran out of fuel. 1 threw a track climbing a hill. The last one, his Jagdtiger, made it the farthest, 60 kilometers. 60 kilometers in 3 days. Then the transmission gave out. Just grinding metal and then silence. They set charges, walked east. The driver said he felt relief because he didn't have to drive that machine anymore.
The psychological impact on German morale. This is something that doesn't get talked about enough. The Jagdtiger was supposed to be a morale booster. Look at our superweapon. Look at our technological superiority. But when soldiers watched these things break down constantly, when they saw resources poured into machines that didn't work, it destroyed confidence. Not in themselves, in their leadership. If this is the best they can do, if this is the plan, then we're finished. There's this American intelligence report from April 1945. They're interviewing German prisoners, asking about the Jagdtiger. And the prisoners, they laugh. They actually laugh. One says, translated, "The Jagdtiger is a wonder weapon. We wonder if it will start. We wonder if it will reach the battle. We wonder if we'll have fuel to leave again." That's what it became. A joke. A symbol of German desperation and dysfunction. Now, let's talk about the few times, the very few times, when the Jagdtiger actually worked as intended. Because it did happen. Rarely, but it happened. And when it did, it was terrifying. There's an engagement near Schwetzingen, March 1945. A single Jagdtiger, somehow functioning, positioned on high ground overlooking a road. American armor comes through, a company of Shermans, 12 tanks. The Jagdtiger opens fire from 2,000 meters. First shot, hits a Sherman, penetrates clean through, exits the other side. Second shot, another Sherman, gone. The Americans scatter. They're trying to locate the shooter. Third shot, fourth shot. The Jagdtiger is methodically destroying them. The 12.8 centimeter gun, when it worked, was absolutely devastating. The Americans finally spot the Jagdtiger. They call in artillery, air support. The Jagdtiger takes 3 direct artillery hits. The armor holds. It keeps firing. By the time the P-47s arrive, the Jagdtiger has killed 7 Shermans. 7! The bombs finally do it. Not a direct hit, but close enough that the concussion disables something inside. The crew abandons. But 7 Shermans. That's what the Jagdtiger was capable of. When everything worked. The problem? That was 1 engagement. 1. And even in that success, the Jagdtiger had to be abandoned afterward because it couldn't move from its position. The suspension had been damaged by the recoil. 7 kills, and then abandoned. Was it worth it? 7 Shermans cost about $350,000 total. The Jagdtiger cost 300,000 Reichsmarks, plus the trained crew, plus the fuel, plus the ammunition, plus the recovery resources. The mathematics don't work out. There's another account, this one from the Eastern Front, February 1945. Two Jagdtigers ambush a Soviet tank column. IS-2s, KV-1s, T-34s. The Jagdtigers are hull down, behind rubble, perfect position. They destroy 11 Soviet tanks in 6 minutes. 11! The Soviet advance stops cold. The Germans think they've won. Then the Soviets do something smart. They don't attack, they just wait. And they shell the area. Not accurately, just constant shelling, random. The Jagdtigers can't leave, too slow, so they sit there, getting pounded for 3 hours. The armor mostly holds, but eventually, a lucky hit damages the gun barrel on one Jagdtiger. A crack. Not even a penetration, just a crack. The gun is useless now. The other Jagdtiger, its engine overheats from sitting in one position for so long. The crew tries to start it again. Won't turn over. Both Jagdtigers abandoned. 11 kills. Both vehicles lost. Not to enemy tanks, to patience and physics. This is the Jagdtiger story. Moments of terrible effectiveness, followed by inevitable mechanical failure. It's like giving someone a sniper rifle that can shoot through buildings, but it weighs 200 pounds and jams every 10 shots. Sure, when it works, it's incredible, but the other 90% of the time, it's a liability. The production numbers tell the story. January 1944 to May 1945, 17 months, 79 Jagdtigers completed. That's about 4.6 per month. Compare that to Sherman production. The Americans were building over 1,500 Shermans per month. Per month. The industrial mathematics of World War II, they're brutal. Germany could build one Jagdtiger in the time it took America to build 300 Shermans. And those 300 Shermans would outlast, outmaneuver, and overwhelm the single Jagdtiger every single time. But there's something deeper here. Something about Nazi ideology that explains the Jagdtiger. This belief, this core belief in superiority, that German technology was inherently better, that German soldiers were worth 10 Allied soldiers, that one German superweapon could defeat 100 Allied weapons. It was baked into the whole system, and it made them stupid. Because the smart move, the rational move in late 1944 was to abandon everything expensive and complicated. Build Stug 3s, build Panzer 4s, build things that work, things that can be maintained, things that can actually reach the battlefield. But that would mean admitting that Germany wasn't superior, that they couldn't out-engineer the problem. And Hitler would never admit that. So they kept building Jagdtigers. There's this moment in March 1945. Albert Speer, the armaments minister, presents a report to Hitler. Germany is out of resources, out of time. He recommends, begs really, to stop all superweapon production, focus on basic infantry equipment, small arms, anti-tank rockets, things that individual soldiers can use to resist. Hitler reads the report, and his response, documented, is to demand more Jagdtigers, more Mausetechs, more wonder weapons. Speer walks out of that meeting knowing Germany is finished because their leader still believes in magic. The Jagdtiger became a symbol of that delusion. Every time one broke down, every time one was abandoned for lack of fuel, every time highly trained crew had to blow up their own vehicle and walk home, it proved the same point. Bigger isn't better. More powerful isn't more effective. Sometimes, often, the best weapon is the one that actually works. The final months of the war, this is where the Jagdtiger story becomes almost surreal, because Germany is collapsing. Everyone knows it. The front lines are disintegrating, cities are falling, and there are still Jagdtigers being delivered to units, brand new, fresh from the factory. And those units are looking at these machines like, what are we supposed to do with this?
There is a unit commander. His name was Hauptmann Albert Ernst, commanding officer of a mixed tank destroyer unit near Kassel. This is April 1945. The Americans are 20 kilometers away and closing fast. And he receives orders. 2 Jagdtigers are being delivered to his position. 2. He's supposed to use them to hold the Americans at a river crossing. And he writes back. The response is in the official records. He writes back and says, "I have no fuel. I have no recovery vehicles. I have no spare parts. I have no trained crews. Send me packed guns instead." The response? The Jagdtigers are coming anyway. Orders are orders. They arrive on rail flat cars because that's the only way to move them any distance. Roads would take too long, use too much fuel, and the things would probably break down anyway. So they're on trains. The trains pull into a siding near Kassel, and immediately, Allied fighter bombers spot them because a Jagdtiger on a flat car is impossible to miss. The P-51s come in, rockets. The Jagdtigers survive. The armor does its job, but the flat cars, destroyed. The rail line, destroyed. So now there are two Jagdtigers sitting on broken flat cars on a destroyed rail line 10 kilometers from the front and no way to move them. Hauptmann Ernst sends a platoon to secure them, not to use them, just to keep them from falling into American hands intact. The platoon arrives, they try to start the engines, one starts, barely. Rough idle, lots of smoke. The other, dead, won't even turn over. So they've got one semi-functional Jagdtiger that can't move because it's still on a flat car, and one completely dead Jagdtiger. The solution? Set demolition charges on both. Blow them in place. Two brand new vehicles, never fired a shot, never moved under their own power, destroyed to keep them from being captured. This happened multiple times. Jagdtigers delivered to units that couldn't use them, destroyed before they ever saw combat. The waste, the sheer mindless waste of it, it's staggering. Each one represented thousands of man-hours of labor, tons of steel, rubber, fuel, all the resources that went into building it. And then, boom, gone, because the logistics didn't exist to support them. There's another account from the defense of Berlin. Yes, Berlin. There were Jagdtigers in Berlin during the final battle. Not many, maybe 3 or 4 that actually made it to the city. They were positioned at major intersections, roadblocks. The idea was they'd hold key positions and break up Soviet armor attacks. And on paper, it should have worked. A Jagdtiger in an urban environment, covering a street, nothing's getting past that gun. Except the Soviets didn't play that game. They learned. Years of fighting German armor taught them how to deal with heavy tanks. They didn't drive their T-34 straight down the boulevards into that 12.8 centimeter gun. They went around, through buildings, through sewers, over rubble. They'd send infantry first, stormtroops with satchel charges and flamethrowers. And the Jagdtiger couldn't depress its gun far enough to hit infantry close to its hull, couldn't traverse fast enough to track moving targets in close quarters, couldn't reverse fast enough to reposition. One Jagdtiger positioned near the Reichstag held its position for 6 hours. 6 hours of continuous fighting. It killed, according to Soviet records, 2 T-34s and 1 ISU-152. 3 kills. And then Soviet infantry got close enough to climb on top of it. They couldn't penetrate the armor, but they could blind it, cover the vision ports. With coats, pour gasoline on the engine deck. The crew had a choice: stay inside and burn, or get out and surrender. They got out. Another Jagdtiger in Berlin, this one's almost comical if it wasn't so tragic, was positioned to cover a bridge. The bridge the Soviets needed to cross to reach the government district. Perfect spot. The Jagdtiger's there, dug in, loaded, ready. The Soviets approach, and the bridge is blown. German engineers blow the bridge themselves as part of the scorched earth policy. So now the Jagdtiger is covering a bridge that doesn't exist. It sits there for 2 days. The crew waiting for orders that never come because the command structure has collapsed. Eventually they realize no one's coming. No fuel, no ammunition resupply, no relief. They set charges and walk away. A perfectly functional Jagdtiger guarding rubble. The Soviet troops, when they found these abandoned Jagdtigers, they were initially cautious. Is it a trap? Is it booby-trapped? But then they realized no one trapped these vehicles.
They were just left there. And the Soviet soldiers, they couldn't believe it. This thing, this massive killing machine. And the Germans just walked away from it. There's accounts of Soviet tankers climbing on them, taking photographs, studying them. Not in fear, in disbelief. One Soviet tank commander said, years later in an interview, he said, "The Germans forgot that you have to actually drive to the battlefield. They built fortresses and then wondered why they lost." Let's talk about the survival rate. Of the 79 Jagdtigers built, fewer than 10 of them survived the war intact. 10 out of 79. And intact is generous. Most of those were vehicles that broke down early in their service life and never made it to combat. They were captured before they could be destroyed. The ones that actually fought, almost all destroyed. Some by enemy action, but most by their own crews, because the standing orders were clear. Don't let the enemy capture it operational. So the crews would set out the demolition charges, or throw grenades into the crew compartment, or fire a round into the engine. Anything to make sure the Jagdtiger couldn't be used against them. There's a Jagdtiger today in the Kubinka Tank Museum outside Moscow. It's one of the survivors. The Soviets recovered it from somewhere in Germany. It has, if you look close, you can see the damage, burn marks on the engine deck, bullet scars on the armor, and inside, the fighting compartment is gutted. The Germans destroyed everything they could before abandoning it. But the hull survived, the gun survived, and there it sits, behind a rope in a museum. 75 tons of failure and wasted potential. The American military did a study after the war. They captured several Jagdtigers in various states of repair. They wanted to understand them, test them, see if the reputation was deserved. They got one running, barely. They drove it about 30 miles. In that 30 miles, the transmission started making concerning noises, the engine overheated twice, the suspension, they reported that the suspension felt like it was about to give out after 30 miles. On good roads, with experienced drivers. Their conclusion, in the official report, was something like, "The Jagdtiger represents the ultimate expression of German tank destroyer doctrine taken to an illogical extreme. It is too heavy, too slow, too unreliable, and too resource-intensive to be considered a successful weapon system. Too heavy, too slow, too unreliable, too expensive." That's the epitaph of the Jagdtiger. 4 words that summarize the entire program. But here's what I want you to understand. The tragedy of the Jagdtiger isn't just that it didn't work. It's that it took resources away from things that did work. Every worker building a Jagdtiger wasn't building trucks. Every ton of steel going into a Jagdtiger wasn't going into Stug 3s. Every engineer designing improvements for the Jagdtiger wasn't improving the Panzer IV. The opportunity cost, the economic term for what you give up to get something else, the opportunity cost of the Jagdtiger program was devastating. Let me put it in perspective. The 79 Jagdtigers built cost roughly 23.7 million Reichsmarks. For that same amount, Germany could have built 474 Stug 3s, or 395 Panzer IVs, or 1,185 Pak 40 anti-tank guns, or 7,900 Panzerschreck anti-tank rockets, or enough trucks to motorize 6 infantry divisions. Any of those options would have been more useful. Any of them. The Stug 3 was reliable, proven, and effective. The Panzer IV was the backbone of the Panzer divisions. The Pak 40 could kill any Allied tank. The Panzerschreck gave individual soldiers tank-killing capability. Trucks? Trucks would have kept the German army mobile. Any of these would have extended the war, made Germany more difficult to defeat. But no. Jagdtigers. Because Hitler wanted super weapons. There's this quote from Heinz Guderian, the Panzer general. After the war, he was interviewed about German tank development. And he said, I'm paraphrasing from memory, but the essence is, "We lost the war the day we decided that building one tank that might work was better than building 10 tanks that definitely worked." He was talking about the Jagdtiger, and the Mouse, and all the other wonder weapons, the entire philosophy that led to them. The Jagdtiger mindset, this idea that technological superiority could overcome numerical inferiority, it infected all of German military planning. The V2 rocket program? Thousands of rockets launched to London. Caused some damage, but imagine if those resources had gone into fighter aircraft instead, or anti-aircraft guns,
or anything else. The Messerschmitt Me-262 jet fighter. Incredible aircraft, but Hitler insisted it be modified into a bomber, wasted months of development, reduced its effectiveness, all because he wanted wonder weapons that could win the war with one stroke. The Jagdtiger is the perfect symbol of that failure. It was wonder weapon thinking applied to armored warfare. Build something so powerful that it doesn't matter that there's only a few of them. Build something so advanced that it doesn't matter if it breaks down. Build something so impressive that it doesn't matter if it never reaches the battlefield. And that thinking, that fundamentally flawed thinking, cost Germany any chance it had. Now, I want to be clear. German soldiers, the men who crewed these machines, they were brave. They were skilled. They did their jobs as well as anyone could under impossible circumstances. This isn't about them. This is about the system that put them in those situations. The system that said, here, take this 75-ton monster that barely runs and go stop the Allied advance. Those men deserved better. They deserved equipment that worked. They deserved leadership that understood basic military logistics. They got neither. There's a letter from a Jagdtiger crew member to his family, written in March 1945. It was found after the war. He talks about his vehicle. He calls it, translated, a beautiful coffin. That's what it was. Beautiful, impressive, covered in thick armor, armed with a massive gun, and utterly, completely useless in any practical sense. A coffin. Because once you got in, chances were you weren't getting out alive. Not because of enemy fire, because the thing wouldn't move when you needed it to. The Jagdtiger had a crew of six. 6 men. Driver, radio operator, commander, gunner, 2 loaders, 6 skilled tankers. Men who'd survived training, survived previous combat postings, survived everything the war had thrown at them so far. And then they were assigned to a Jagdtiger. And their survival rate, it plummeted. Not because they became worse soldiers, because their vehicle made them sitting targets. There's statistical data on this. Units equipped with Jagdtigers had casualty rates 30 to 40% higher than units with Panthers or Panzer IVs. 30 to 40%. That's not a small difference. That's the difference between a functional military unit and a death sentence. And the crews knew it. They called the Jagdtiger by nicknames. The hunting beast was the official name. What did the crews call it? The hunting house, because it moved like a house. Or the running bunker, except it didn't run. Or my personal favorite, 80 tons of dreams, because it was supposed to weigh 75 tons, but with a full combat load, it was closer to 80. And because it represented Hitler's dreams of superweapons, dreams that got men killed. There's a museum in Germany today, the Deutsche Panzer Museum in Münster. They have a Jagdtiger hull there. Just the hull. No gun, no internal components, just the armor shell. And next to it, there's a placard. It lists the specifications, the weight, the armor thickness, the gun caliber. And at the bottom, there's a single sentence. Translated, it says, "This vehicle represents the final evolution of German tank destroyer design and the ultimate failure of prioritizing firepower over practicality." That's it. That's the official museum assessment. Ultimate failure.
But here's what gets me. Despite everything, despite all the breakdowns, all the wasted resources, all the unnecessary deaths, there's still people today who look at the Jagdtiger and see glory. They see the massive gun, the thick armor, the intimidating presence. They talk about how powerful it was, how deadly, how advanced. And they're not wrong. It was all those things. But they miss the point entirely. Power means nothing if you can't deliver it to the target. Doesn't matter if you have a gun that can kill anything if you can't get that gun to the battlefield. Doesn't matter if you're invincible if you're too slow to engage or retreat. Doesn't matter how advanced your engineering is if it's so complex that it breaks constantly. The Jagdtiger was designed to win battles. Instead, it lost the war. Not by itself, obviously, but it represented everything wrong with Germany's approach to warfare in 1944 and 1945. The obsession with superweapons, the refusal to accept reality, the belief that technology could overcome strategy, logistics, and basic common sense. In the end, the Jagdtiger killed maybe 150 Allied vehicles total. That's being generous, combining all units, all engagements, all of 1944 and 1945. 150 kills for 75 vehicles, for millions of Reichsmarks, for thousands of tons of steel, for hundreds of trained crew members. The mathematics are brutal. Each Jagdtiger kill cost approximately 2,000 Reichsmarks, assuming you only count the production cost. Add in fuel, ammunition, training, logistics, recovery operations. Each kill probably cost closer to 5,000 Reichsmarks. A Panzerfaust, the infantry anti-tank rocket, cost 30 Reichsmarks. One soldier with a Panzerfaust could kill a Sherman for 30 Reichsmarks. The Jagdtiger needed 5,000 Reichsmarks per kill. That's a 167-to-1 cost ratio. 167 times more expensive for the same result. That's the Jagdtiger story. That's the legacy. Not the impressive specifications, not the thick armor, not the massive gun. The legacy is waste. Waste of resources, waste of time, waste of lives, waste of everything Germany couldn't afford to waste in 1945. And here's the final irony, the final kick in the teeth. After the war, after all the Jagdtigers were destroyed or captured or scrapped, the Allies tested them extensively. They wanted to understand German tank development, figure out what worked and what didn't, and their conclusion, documented in multiple reports from American, British, and Soviet testing, was that the Jagdtiger gun could have been mounted on a Panther chassis, a lighter, faster, more reliable Panther chassis. It would have required some redesign, some engineering work, but it was possible. You could have had 70% of the Jagdtiger's firepower in a vehicle that actually worked, that actually reached the battlefield, that crews could actually use effectively. But that would have been sensible. That would have been practical. And sensible and practical, those weren't words that described German superweapon development in 1944 and 1945. So the next time someone talks about German engineering superiority, about how advanced their weapons were, about how the Allies only won through numbers, remember the Jagdtiger. Remember the 75-ton monster that couldn't move. Remember the superweapon that broke down every 50 miles. Remember the tank destroyer that killed more German resources than Allied tanks. Remember that sometimes, often, the best weapon isn't the most powerful one. It's the one that works, the one that gets to the fight, the one that comes home afterward. The Jagdtiger was none of those things. It was a beautiful, impressive, technologically advanced failure. And it took a piece of Germany down with it. That's the story. That's the truth. 75 tons of steel, pride, and delusion, sitting broken on the side of a road, somewhere in Germany, waiting for a recovery vehicle that would never come, waiting for fuel that didn't exist, waiting for a war that was already lost. The Jagdtiger, Germany's heaviest tank destroyer and one of its greatest mistakes. If you made it this far, you just learned the truth about one of World War II's most understood weapons. Hit that subscribe button. We're diving into forgotten military history every single week. Real stories, real data. No myths. Drop a comment and tell us, what other German superweapon should we examine next? The Maus? The V2? The ME-262? You tell us. Thanks for watching.